Um, we are going to start this week by reviewing what we talked about last week, and then we're going to move forward to adding and subtracting negative numbers this week and next week. But first, let's just talk about some of the things that were introduced last week. We talked about positive and negative integers. Positive numbers, as you know, are to the right-hand side of the zero on a number line. And with positive numbers, you don't usually put the plus sign in front of it to show that it's positive. We just know that it is positive. However, with the negative sign, you do have to put that sign in front of the number. And the negative numbers are to the left of zero on the number line. Some real life examples we talked about. Some positives would be above sea level if we're talking about elevation. Below sea level would be a negative. Some things that are more familiar, if you like sports and you're watching a football game, if the team gains yardage, they move the ball forward, that's a good thing. But if they can lose yardage too, like if, I don't know, they get pushed back or the quarterback gets sacked or something, you can lose yardage, and that would be a negative number. Money is something that everybody understands pretty well. If you are, let's say this summer, you're going to be mowing lawns in your neighborhood to earn some money. That's a positive. Earning money is a positive. You're collecting that money. The amount is going to grow and get bigger and bigger. If you decide you want to save that money and then you're going to go purchase a video game, when you spend that money, that'll be a negative amount because it's being taken out of your piggy bank money, and the amount in your piggy bank will go down. So it will decrease. And that's why sometimes decrease is used for negative and increase is for positive numbers. So those are just some examples. Also, we have below zero. I put that in there too if we're talking about temperature. If something's below zero, that is extremely cold. As you know, I don't think we're allowed going outside at recess if it's like 20 degrees, and that's above zero. So if it's below zero, we definitely would not be going out. I would have liked to gone out, but okay. So those are some of the real life examples we talked about. Now we're going to move to talking about absolute value. So when I was going over the work that you had done last week, I noticed that some of you, for your answers for the absolute value, had a negative sign. There are certain things to remember when we're talking about absolute value. The absolute value is the distance that number is from zero, and it's never going to be negative. It'll never be a negative number. So if this first number we see here, if you would read this, it would be the absolute value of 3 is, hold on a second, let me get a color here. The absolute value of 3, so for this one right here, we're talking about, here's 3 up here on the number line, and it is 3 spaces away from 0, so the absolute value of 3 is 3. But the absolute value of negative 3 is also 3 because it's 1, 2, 3. It's 3 spaces away from 0. So really, you're just taking away that negative sign that's inside the absolute value lines, and then that's the number it is. So negative 7, just take away that negative. It's 7 spaces from 0. Negative 4 is just 4 spaces from 0. So just to show you, here's negative 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just 4 spaces from 0. So that's why the absolute value is 4. The absolute value of 1 is just 1. The absolute value of 0 is 0. It's just going to be 0. Ooh, my pen has crazy colors. Negative 5. So just to remember, if negative 5, that would be down here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces from 0. So the absolute value of negative 5 is positive 5. And same with the absolute value of 5 is 5. So remember, the absolute value is never negative. You always have a positive number for your absolute value. And it's those lines that are on right here. Sorry about that. These are your absolute value lines. Okay. And then we're going to talk about comparing and ordering numbers as well. We're going to be looking at this number line up top, and for comparing and ordering integers, remember that the number that is farther to the right on a number line is the greater number. So if you're comparing two numbers and one is farther to the right, that number will always be the greater number. So in our example right here, we have -2 and 1. So -2 is right here. 1 is right here. So even though you might look at this 2 and think it's greater, it's not. It's a -2. +1 is farther to the right, so it is the greater number. So -2 is less than 1. So if you think about it, you have, for the first few examples, we have 0 and -2. Here's 0. There's -2 again. And 0, of course, is farther right. So 0 is greater than -2. So think about it, think about it in terms of like money. I'd rather have no money than and this just be with no money at all instead of owing somebody money. So even though 0 isn't anything, it's better than being negative, like in the negative. So let's look at the next number, the next two numbers, 3 and -5. We have 3 right here, -5 right here on our number line. So 3, +3 is greater than -5. And then our last example, we have -5 right here and -4 right here. And if it was positive numbers, if we just had 5 and 4, you know that +5 is greater than 4. But in this case, -5 is less than -4 because -4 is farther right. So you do have to watch for those signs. So that's just review of comparing. And now we're going to look at ordering. If I was given these 4 numbers right here, and I asked you to order those from least to greatest, so you want to do the least first and then the greatest number last. The least of these, we have 1, -1, 3, and -5. And so the least would be the one that is farthest left. And if you look, we're going to come upon -5 first. So that's the least. Then we keep moving and we have -1. Then we have 1 and 3. So you have to look to see if they're asking you from least to greatest or greatest to least if you're ordering numbers. But remember, the greater number will be farther right on the number line. So hopefully this review helps you. Everybody seemed to do really well on the work from last week. The only thing I really wanted to touch on was the absolute value always being a positive number. But so this is the review. You're going to do a workbook page that just reviews this information, and then we're going to move on to adding and subtracting negative numbers. All right. I hope you have a good week.